Well, I'm there to support him. And even though we're from two political stripes, I'm as close as I lie out there.
The developments on a daily basis are just getting insane here. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today, we've got Doug Ford's ad that was shown to Americans that pissed off Donald Trump. Turns out it came from China. I'm not exactly sure what's going on here. I'll show you what we know. We also have a vote that just passed in the House of Commons that is forcing some of Mark Carney's former corporate buddies to come testify from Brookfield. We got a bunch of stuff here. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, we got some interesting polling data coming out of Surrey. Surrey Conservatives lead by 14 points in new mainstream poll. For some weird reason, they have the Conservatives listed as red on this poll. All these colors are wonky. The green one here would be the Liberals, and the orange is the NDP. You're seeing 25 to 4 to 3%, and the purple one here would be a center-right party. Moving ahead, we got this one from Scott Moe. Not a good take. We've got Scott Moe commenting on the $80 billion nuclear reactor deal between Cpac, Brookfield in the US, Donald Trump doing this huge deal with Mark Carney's buddy Bruce Flatt. Transformational partnership will benefit Saskatchewan, Canada, and the US by building North American nuclear technology, utilizing Canadian uranium and ensuring Saskatchewan jobs for years to come. While that's technically true because Cameco is a Canadian company, a uranium company, saying stuff like in a challenging time, this is a positive step. $100 billion deal or $80 billion, I think it's upwards of $100 billion going to America after Brookfield moved its headquarters. Let me correct myself. Mark Carney voted to move Brookfield's headquarters to America just before becoming prime minister. This is not really a good take. This is not the way to word this because Brookfield, a Canadian company, now an American company, is screwing Canada over, and Mark Carney's going to get rich off of this. Brookfield, no conflict of interest. Do as I say, not as I do, repeats itself. Brookfield as in the company Mark Carney owns. How the F is any of this legal, Scott? Yeah, how is this legal? So I get it. This is going to help Saskatchewan, but like this is some dirty dealing going on here. Mark Carney is selling out Canadians. He even on the debate stage, he said it's a great opportunity. Yeah, for who? Himself and the Americans. We got this one here. Yikes, Stellantis basically told Canada there's no business case for auto sector in Canada with tariffs in place. This industry is going to get absolutely wiped off the map here if a deal isn't made.
Choppy waters, and based on what Stellantis is saying is that there's no business case for auto jobs in Canada as long as tariffs are in place. I think the immediate outlook looks pretty negative.
What's going to happen here? The current automakers all going to start selling BYD vehicles or making BYD Chinese vehicles. There's a bunch of rumors going around right now that Mark Carney's going to drop the 100% tariffs on Chinese EVs. We've got this, no more Canadian tariffs on Chinese cars. PM Carney's meeting with Xi Jinping may be the start. That's just it. They'll make a deal there to drop those tariffs. We'll see what happens. And we got this one here, Gregor Robertson in a room packed full of innovators at the Build Canada Modular Summit. Of course it is. Modular homes for everyone. When are they going to roll out those lucrative contracts, one going to Modulaire Group owned by Brookfield? It's a matter of time. Moving on to this bombshell, we've got the House of Commons just voted on the third report from the Ethics Committee. The report orders the following witnesses to appear: Michael Sabia, Clerk of the Privy Council; Marc-Andre Blanchard, Chief of Staff to Prime Minister Mark Carney; Bruce Flatt, CEO of Brookfield Corporation; and Connor Teskey, President of Brookfield Asset Management and Chief Executive Officer at Brookfield Renewable Partners. Couple major things to note here. First off, Elizabeth May voted with the Liberals. She voted nay. Look at this. Disgraceful. She didn't want these people to be questioned. This tells you everything you need to know about Elizabeth May. Everyone else voted with the Conservatives. The Bloc, the NDP, and obviously the Conservatives voted in favor to have these people testify. As for the people in question here, let's just take a look what I've got on my chart here. So Michael Sabia, I've been wanting to do a video on him. I just haven't had time. He is a WF guy. I know that. But Marc-Andre Blanchard, I have an entire section of him on here. I already have 2 videos of him right here. And the major thing to note about this guy, as you can see here, a walking red flag, is from his experience here, just before Mark Carney brought him on, he was the Executive Vice President, Head of CDPQ Global at Caisse de Dépôt de Placement de Quebec. And that's notable because they've done a lot of business with Brookfield. Antelia Scientific, a CDPQ plus Brookfield-owned company, which manufactures and distributes consumables, testing equipment, serving diagnostics, environmental and life sciences labs. We've got CDPQ acquired Brookfield stake in First Hydro Company. We've got Clarios battery manufacturer, CDPQ and Brookfield owned. We've got CDPQ selling their stake in Colonial Pipeline to Brookfield here. So there's a lot of business ties there, but the major red flag with this guy is if you follow the line from Marc-Andre Blanchard up here, we've got the Catalytic Transition Fund. And what do we see there? Caisse de Dépôt de Placement de Quebec, Canada's second largest public pension manager. He's a vice president of this company. He did this deal with Mark Carney. Mark Carney was at Brookfield. These two guys did this deal together. So he needs to be questioned on this because Mark Carney set up this $5 $5 billion catalytic transition fund. This is one you can see here over in the Middle East. So this needs more digging, and this guy needs to be absolutely grilled on this. And I've already got a head start for the conservatives here. I've already got a ton of information on all this stuff over here. So obviously the other guys mentioned, we've got Bruce Flatt and all his ties. And the final one on here, Connor Teskey. I don't have him on my chart, so it's probably time to put him on there. This should be very interesting. It'll be a 2-hour session for each of them. And with that, we have multiple people who were asked about this after the vote, including NDP interim leader Don Davies.
Blanchard being called to the ATI committee. I believe your party supported that. Why?
Well, because transparency and accountability are important in Parliament. You know, the Prime Minister put all of his assets in a blind trust in advance of the election before Canadians had a chance to actually see what those were. And so I think that it's important that Canadians have confidence in their Prime Minister. And so calling people who can testify to those issues, I think, is important.
And the end game is what? What do you just...
Transparency and ethics.
The key to this, what he just mentioned, the blind trust, because essentially those guys should be shielding Mark Carney from conflict of interest. Are they actually doing that? I don't think so. So that's where they come in with this. Mark Carney's direct conflicts of interest. They all need to be grilled on this.
Hear about Sabia and Blanchard at ATI committee, what you just voted on. Any thoughts on that? Just asking because you guys just voted on it.
Yeah, well, the committee is tasked with reviewing the Conflict of Interest Act, and I think the witnesses that are being compelled to appear by the House of Commons have a lot of value to add to our study, and I'm looking forward to having them come.
What's the end point of this? More transparency, or?
I think the end point is transparency and accountability, and I think Canadians deserve to know that when their public office holders are in office, that they're aware, Canadians are aware of what their holdings are and what it represents and how that impacts some of the decisions that are being made.
Final question is, the Bloc and the NDP, I believe, supported this motion. Yep. What do you think of that?
Well, the Bloc has been very interested in this study. We heard last week, for example, that Brookfield had used tax havens to dodge over a 5-year period, while the Prime Minister was the head of Brookfield, $6.5 billion in Canadian taxes. So that piqued the interest of the Bloc. It also piqued the interest of the NDP, and frankly, I'm not surprised that they supported this motion today.
With this $80 to $100 billion deal that Donald Trump just did with Brookfield, and we've got Doug Ford's ad stirring things up, there's a lot of moving parts here. I wanted to show you this. This article is from July 9th, 2019. And what do we see halfway down here? On Monday, the president attended banquet hosted by Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, held in the Treasury cash room at the Treasury Department. And who attended the banquet? You can see it's highlighted here, Bruce Flatt. That's why I kind of laughed when Donald Trump said, "Nice to meet you." He's already met Bruce Flatt. I already knew this. I should have showed this in the previous video. Here's the receipt. So they had a banquet. Bruce Flatt was there. These are all the business leaders that were there. There's not that many of them, like 15 or 20 of these guys. Most definitely Trump went around, shook all their hands, got to meet them and know them. Otherwise, why would they be there? We've also got this, which is interesting here. So 4 Senate Republicans joined the Democrats to rebuke Trump's tariff policy in key vote. So some senators are not liking what Trump's doing with all these tariffs. Some of them make sense for making America stronger, at least in the short term. Maybe long term, it's going to be awful. Who knows? But they're trying to pull back the auto sector. The forestry tariffs don't make any sense whatsoever unless America's planning to import timber from Russia, which is not really a great idea considering there's that big conflict going on over there. Don't need to be making them any more money. So clearly this is starting to create a divide in the party. Despite that though, we're seeing big deals signed. I showed a little bit of this on the previous video. We've got the new Japanese prime minister here. In 10 days in office, she secured a $500 billion deal with Trump. I went through the details of that. 17 different companies, most of them are Japanese. As Mark Nixon's pointing out, Mark Carney in 7 months has gotten nothing. He's flown around the world and got virtually no real deals. There's some of those paper phony baloney letters of intent, but that's about it.
Is there a way for the Prime Minister to address what Shakir lays out, while at the same time, maintain sensitivity around not wanting to put the entire, I understand the impetus to not want to put everything out in the public domain, but right now it feels like there's nothing.
Well, look, I think the politics in this environment are pretty clear. Voters are hungry for politicians to be angry, to throw up their elbows, to take a tougher stance with negotiations with the United States. And I think when you're unfettered from the actual reality of those negotiations, like Mr. Poilievre or like Mr. Ford or like Premier Eby, it's easy to do that. It's easy to be the tough, angry guy throwing around a lot of big words and a lot of tough talk. But if you're in the actual negotiation, if you have a seat at that table, the prime minister is a lot more fettered by what he can do to try and respond to the political environment and what voters are expecting from him.
This liberal guy here doesn't have a clue of what's going on. How much money do you want to bet he has no idea about any of this? This guy talks a big game, thinking that Carney's working with his best options, this, that, and the other. He probably doesn't even have the foggiest idea of Mark Carney's connections to Donald Trump, Brookfield, all of this.
And I think the reality is that the prime minister wasn't just elected to have his elbows up, as I think Mr. Poilievre said, and a lot of others have thrown around. He was elected because he is competent. He's the adult in the room. That a lot of Canadians put their confidence in him as the person who was up to this challenge and up to this moment. And I think he's responding to this particular moment right now in the right way. He's responding to it with maturity. He's responding to it with a sense of purpose, a sense of an eye on the ball. We've got to get the
maturity. The company he's heavily invested in, the company he chaired just a handful of months ago, just did a $80 to $100 billion deal with America. And another company he's invested in, GE Vernova, just also did a $100 billion deal with Donald Trump on the same day. Not to mention there's a couple other companies there he's invested in that also made deals with Trump today. So yeah, he's winning. It's a great opportunity, as Mark Carney would say. This guy thinks Carney's fighting for Canadians. He is not. He's fighting for himself. Mark Carney is playing both sides. He's trying to get his eco-green carbon credit system going in the UK and Canada and Europe and trying to fleece all of our populations with that nonsense. And he knows that's not working in America. I showed the clip the other day as the governor of the Bank of Canada. He said that Canada should have more pipelines. We should be building them to the coast, so we're not just reliant on America. It came from his words as the governor of Bank of Canada. He's not a dumb man. He's a very smart man. That's why all his investments are in America. He's hedging his bet there where he knows it will grow safely, and he's trying his best to pump those investments while he swings for the rafters with China and carbon credits. This guy has no idea what's going on.
The job's done and we're ready to do it. The president of the United States is throwing a temper tantrum over a television ad, and I think it would be unwise of Mr. Carney to try and respond accordingly, even if it would delight voters.
The question is Donald Trump's temper tantrum, as he says, is that all planned? Is that planned with Carney? It could be. Just think of what happens here. Mark Carney can't get a deal. He gets slammed in the media like he is now. The budget gets voted down. We go to an election, and halfway through the election cycle, Mark Carney gets a deal with Donald Trump. Oh, the savior. He comes out with this big deal, signs the big deal in the middle of the election. He'll look like a hero. Is that what they're queuing up right now? Are these guys working together? These space cadets are not thinking about this kind of stuff. This guy doesn't even know about the reality of the situation here. Another guy not grounded in reality is David Eby. Here he is saying that he's going forward with his ads against Donald Trump, even after Doug Ford did it and slammed BC with more tariffs on the BC forestry industry.
Premier David Eby says the province will go ahead with its own anti-tariff ads aimed at the American public.
First of all, let me say that I support unambiguously Premier Ford's advertisements in the United States. It is absolutely essential that we talk to Americans about the implications of tariffs, about the fact that trade policy in the United States right now is governed not by logic, not by economics, not by relationship, but by something else entirely, and by one individual in the White House. And the best example that I can give of that is the fact that Russia has better access to the U.S. market right now for softwood than Canada does. So we will continue to work to get the word out about the unfair and absurd treatment of the United States of Canada. But we can't control the man in the White House. All we can do is control our own destiny by ensuring that we're working with trade partners that value the resources and the work that Canadians bring to the global economy.
And the trading partners we absolutely need to survive. Let's piss them off as much as possible.
BC announced the anti-tariff ads last week to counter possible U.S. duties on softwood lumber. The move follows U.S. President Donald Trump's cancellation of trade talks after Ontario's similar campaign. Eby says BC's effort is smaller, but he fully backs Ontario's stance.
What a joke. These guys are clowns. They don't learn. Crazy that TDS is literally our official foreign policy. That's what this is. David Eby ignores Trump reaction to Ford and will be shocked when Trump reacts to his. Now moving over to the Doug Ford ad, and this coming from China, which is crazy.
Is in this town. Lisa, I'm wondering what you make of what we're seeing in terms of the blame game. Like, I don't know if Mark Carney had to approve Doug Ford's ad. I know he saw it in a meeting with Premier Ford, is what senior Ontario people are telling us. Didn't object to it, but neither did Donald Trump, first of all. I mean, this political finger-pointing in the face of it, I mean, Donald Trump is ultimately the actor here. What do you make of the dynamic that we're seeing?
Well, Donald Trump may be the actor here, but the victim is Canadian business. Mm-hmm. And I'm not appreciative of all the noise around who did what when. The reality of the situation, as I see it, David, is that real live decisions are being made by real businesses in this country about whether or not they are going to move their operation to some state in the United States. Yeah. Family offices are looking at it. Small and medium-sized businesses are, because the signal they're not getting from federal and provincial government is that they actually have an idea of how to proceed through this dilemma in a careful way that's going to end up being okay at the end. There's so much uncertainty right now in the business sector, especially in small and medium-sized businesses. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this before. It is really jarring to hear ordinary Canadian business people say, I think I really got to think about closing up shop here and moving to the States because I don't know where this is all going to end.
And yet David Eby wants to follow suit with Doug Ford's crazy plan.
Doug Ford, he's the feisty Ontario premier who refuses to kiss the ring. So now President Trump is slapping an extra 10% tariff on imports from Canada. President Trump is calling the ad dirty pool, even warning that he can play dirtier. Are you worried?
Well, I'm not going to get into name calling back and forth. This is dirty. It wasn't dirty. It was factual.
Now, your Prime Minister, Mark Carney, put out a statement over the weekend, Doug, as this ad played out during the highly watched World Series, we should point out, saying it is the sole responsibility of the government of Canada to have these tariff negotiations with the United States. So I'm curious, after that statement that he put out, what's Carney telling you today? Does he want you to back off?
You know something? I agree with the Prime Minister. That's his sole responsibility. My sole responsibility as the largest province of 16 million people.
Is there ever a time where Mark Carney gets what you're doing, but just says, come on, you're kind of getting in my way. I need some help here, Doug.
Well, I'm there to support him. And even though we're from two political stripes, I'm as close as I lie out there. And we work well together.
They're good buddies. His closest ally. Mark Carney knew about this ad. Pierre Poilievre grilled the Liberals about this ad. They refused to answer in the House of Commons.
The Prime Minister promised that he'd have a good deal by July 21st. That date has come and gone. Yeah. And his latest excuse is an ad from the government of Ontario. He claims that's why he couldn't keep his promise and get a deal. So, yes or no? Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, as I said a moment ago, our government is committed to working with all partners in our federation, to work with premiers in every part of the country, to work.
So he doesn't answer the question. Typical Liberal, should be fined for this. Now, with all of that in mind, Mark Carney clearly saw this ad. He approved the ad for Doug Ford to create and send out. And as I'll show you after here, Corey Tenecki, who's been very critical of Pierre Poilievre and is running Doug Ford's campaign, is connected to the creation of this ad. But this ad essentially mimics, or the idea comes from, it basically copies an ad from China. Table Salt posting this, the CCP put out a video on Twitter in April that is almost identical to the Doug Ford ad. He's got it here on the left and on the right. This is going to blow your mind. The key when watching this is look at the text, because you can see how the parts match up. It is almost identical. What you're going to hear is the Chinese ad playing the entire time, and then the Ford ad is on the right.
Someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports. It looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. The triggering of fierce trade wars. The result is more and more tariffs, higher and higher trade barriers, and less competition. So soon, because of the prices made artificially high by tariffs that subsidize inefficiency and poor management, people stop buying. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs.
Is this a coordinated effort by China to work with the Ford government, the Carney government, to put this out? Did they just rip this off? Were they lazy and just stole the ad idea? What is this? We don't know what's going on here, but this is ridiculously close. Jeff Evely posting this, nothing to see here. The Toronto PC MPP involved in Chinese interference saga. That's interesting. A lot like what Carney has going on. Carney lashes out at reporters denying meeting with CCP-backed group despite photos. Nothing's going on there with China, not at all. So I've got the original source video here. So I don't know what's going on here. I don't know if they're working with China, where they just ripped this off. But as you can see, this was posted April 7th, 2025 and has 15 million views. Now what's also crazy about the situation, Mario breaks this down here, the connection between Corey Tenecki, Doug Ford's campaign manager, and this ad.
Extremely controversial Ronald Reagan ad campaign that resulted in all trade negotiations being halted because it was approved by Doug Ford and viewed by Mark Carney, was produced by a firm with ties to Doug Ford's PC party. Company is called Creative Currency. 2022, they received $168,000, creating the Get It Done slogan. In 2025, they played a much larger role and they received $1.7 million from the Ontario PC government. Neither the Premier's office nor Creative Currency responded to Global News questions on how much the commercial actually cost, despite the $75 million budget to advertise it. This is where it gets good. This is Corey Tenecki. He's been in charge of Doug Ford's campaigns. He also owns and runs a company called Rubicon Strategy, a leading public affairs and government relations firm. Rubicon was registered to lobby for 16 organizations that received SDF grants. This lobbying firm, Rubicon Strategy, owned by the Premier's campaign manager, got more than $100 million in grant money. An article in the Toronto Star is published that said that Corey's blunt style has ruffled the feathers of some cabinet ministers who have privately complained to the Star that he has too much power. Now this is where it gets interesting. Corey married Nicole Alouette. Sorry if I butchered that name. Cole has a sister named Ali Alouette Matthews. Remember that last name, Matthews. She recently tweeted, "Thank you to @FindCurrency for hosting the live taping of our podcast tonight." You click on that, you get Creative Currency, the same company that created the Ronald Reagan ad campaign. You scroll down, it says, "Our president, Dennis Matthews." This is Dennis Matthews. Let me spell it out. Corey Tenecki, who owns Rubicon Strategy, who's also Doug Ford's campaign manager. He's the brother-in-law of Dennis Matthews, who owns that agency that produced the ad. Not only that, if you Google search Allison Matthews, you'll see that she's been named as a member of the board of the LCBO, an entity controlled by Doug Ford's government. Now let me ask you this. When you see all this, what's the first word that comes to mind? What do you guys think of all this?
This is some good digging here. It seems very much that Doug Ford served that big contract over to Corey Tenecki's brother-in-law. Family taking care of family here. So they created this ad, but this ad was already created, minus all the visuals that were put in there, by China. This is such a ridiculous situation now. I don't even know what to think about this. We see the connections between Doug Ford and China, Mark Carney and China. Those guys are buddies and good friends. Doug Ford said it himself on national television there in America. What has become of our country?